you have everything handled. So the minute you look vulnerable in front of a partner, men start to feel as if now she's gonna think that
I'm weak.
Yeah, she's gonna have that idea. She's gonna. So definitely, men want to be above their
sort of in
situations.
control.
In control, exactly. So what then that leads to is that we don't speak out. We oppress our feelings to a point that we can no longer oppress.
What then happens when
because
that?
then you resort to violence because he's now asking you things that you don't want to talk about. Like, how is your finances looking like? It's like, this girl also, in slangs they say, cherry walk. You're asking too much now. You're talking too much now. I don't like girls like this. Then you start lashing out on her. But those are basic things. She's asking you because she wants to know. She wants to prepare a future with you. Now, men start to lash out about that, and violence comes from there because they don't want to be put on the hot spot.
And maybe, like you said, deal with these issues. Really allowing that space and into the intimate. Robert, from your side, what are the elements of an unhealthy relationship?
Well, I was actually just going to pick up on that anyway. Is the fact that I think what will often be a challenge in a relationship, and I've seen that time and time again. I've seen that in my own relationship, despite my best efforts to try and be aware of that. Is the fact that as men, precisely because of this fear of showing vulnerability, and because of having to be someone that, in terms of society, we have been almost brainwashed to be. And now we try to present this person to the other person. Until you mentioned it, that's difficult in a relationship because a relationship is also made out of who you are. And if you're going into this relationship and you're carrying a facade, that relationship will become tiring to you because you need to keep that facade up. You feel like when you leave the house of your girlfriend or whatever, you take a breather and you say, I can be myself now, you know? And I feel like that will be an element of unhealthy relationships because there will come a time where either one of two things will happen. Either, as Pedro, as you mentioned, you've bottled things up for so long, these things will burst. And they will burst out in one form or another of gender-based violence, and that may be physical, that may be beating the girl because why is she asking me these questions the whole time? But that might also be emotional and just turning off and turning away from your partner and perhaps cheating or something. And the other thing that might happen, and that I feel is the more healthy, but it's also often the more difficult, is that you choose to continue the relationship in a healthy way and you address this. But I feel like that will often be difficult because now you've spent, I don't know, a year, 2 years, no matter how much time with this girl, or with your partner, and your partner's gotten used to who you've pretended to them to be. And now you've got this phase where you need to somehow transition, but you don't also want to just from one day on to another be a different person, because again that's going to put a lot of stress on the relationship. It's going to put a lot of pressure because your partner will not understand why are you acting so different now. And that will cause a whole different set of problems. You'll be bothered every day, but why are you so different? You used to be like this. You used to be like this.
Frustration in relationship.
Of course, because now you feel like you can't be yourself, but whose fault is it really? It's you entering into the relationship carrying a facade in front of you, and when you're trying to open yourself up, it's very, very difficult as a man, and I feel like that makes it just so much more difficult again to be vulnerable, because I think we also realize that it's us that messed up.
But we don't want to show it because we don't want to show that vulnerability as men. And like you said, that weakness as well. And then Tuli, I'm going to ask you, Regain Trust as well as Childline Lifeline has done a lot of research when it comes to the reporting of cases at the Women and Child Abuse Center. And most of it is from women, if not all of it. So how come is it that men do not get in that position to say, you know what, I'm being emotionally abused by my girlfriend or my partner? Why is it that men do not speak out to say, I need help because I'm emotionally being abused?
There's a very interesting cycle that we are in, where a child is born into a household with a mother and a father, but from a very young age the boy is told, men don't cry, men don't bottle your emotions, basically. And then the child goes through a whole teenage, adulthood, young adult, and then they come at some point where they're either abusive or whichever it is, or they're being abused. But because they were told men don't cry, men don't do anything, they now bottle it up and end up abusing somebody. Now this person has to go to one of these facilities to get help and stuff like that. Or what happens after that, these two people have a child, and then this child now ends up in the same cycle to say men don't do anything. So it's a very interesting cycle that just goes around.
That goes around and around.
And I think one of the reasons, like I said, one of the reasons is exactly that. It's because from a very young age we were told men don't cry, men don't show vulnerability. The second most interesting thing is that a lot of times us as men don't have an example of other men who have shown vulnerability.
So that is where the key comes in. It's the men that's showing how to be vulnerable and not necessarily regard that and say that is weak. Because it's quite interesting. I'm not sure if any of you are fathers. You would find your daughter in many instances, just as an example, the daughter would fall and a dad would come and say, it's okay, sweetie, it's okay to cry. But as soon as it's a boy, boys don't cry. So from a younger age, you're being taught as a boy, okay, I got hurt, but let me just brush it off, because as a boy I'm not supposed to cry. But how does that boy child then express the emotion? And then maybe we can look at, when it comes to relationships, why do men then resort to violence?
Because there is no other alternative. There are only two ways out of the situation. Firstly, you need to either speak, cry it out, tell people exactly the way you are feeling, which men don't do, because from an early age you are molded into that machine that doesn't cry or doesn't lash out or stuff like that. So the other resort is definitely violence, because you are feeling pain. Even if you see this when people play soccer, for instance, in the street, and they hate their toe, they're just there with a burning inside with a fire.
They could hit the stone, they would probably hear it.
They want to hold something, grab and break. So that is the method they are taught, that's how you... that's how we are taught to remove frustration. So then when you get somebody that's standing in front of you and asking you all these questions that you feel you are being pressed too much, you cannot cry because there's an argument. As a man, you cannot cry and say, no, she's asking me too many questions, so I'll go in my room and cry. So what you then do is, because you are used of removing frustration with breaking or throwing something, then that's your action that you then do, because that is what you are taught to do.
Can I just add something? It's very important for us to actually point this out now, that when you are younger and when you are a child, when things happen to you and things are done to you, you have no control over. But at a certain point, in your life, and I think this is very important, especially for men, at a certain point, we need to start taking responsibility. Like, you cannot go through your whole life blaming your childhood. And I think that's one of the things that we as men have a tendency of doing a lot. Because you were not taught how to communicate or how to express your emotions as a child, it doesn't mean that you have to go into your 40s, 50s, 60s
and still do
being the same. You understand?
Exactly.
At some point, because I think this is the key definition of what maturity is. Is that you take responsibility to say, look, listen, stuff happened to me when I was a kid. Whatever happened. That I don't have control over that. But at some point, I have to say to myself, yo, I don't know how to...
I cannot have these childlike behaviors anymore.
I don't know how to communicate properly, so I got to seek an expert. I don't know how to show emotions, so I have to go see a psychologist. Because like, this is one of the things I did actually this year. I realized I was going through certain certain issues in my life, in my personal life and all that, which was affecting some key areas of my life. So what I decided to do was, I'm going to see a psychologist. You understand? And the psychologist actually helped with a lot of like, to help me to discover a lot of things and help me to deal with a lot of things. And I think as men, at some point, you need to realize, man, like, it was fine getting drunk when you are heartbroken. It was fine at some point, but at some point you gotta realize, man, I've lost money. I've lost money. I've actually become worse. This is like, this is not a healthy way of dealing with things. At some point, you've got to start taking responsibility and saying, I need to do things.
And Tuli, you're sort of guiding us into the next question. And for you watching as well, if you're a man out there and you've resorted to violence, or you've almost got to that point in your relationship where you've resorted to violence, I'd love for you, in conclusion, to just maybe give us, because we've identified the negative aspects of, a relationship and the positive as well. But what are, to the men that's listening now, and you mentioned something, psychological help, seek someone to speak to from your side. Gentlemen, starting with you, Robert, what are your thoughts in terms of advising men out there to maybe speak and also be vulnerable? How would you unpack that?
I think the first and probably the most important part, because without that, not even psychologists can help you, is the honesty with yourself. I think what many of us tend to do is to just not, and excuse me for saying this, not to man up to our feelings. And I mean, this is again a stereotype, we need to man up, but I think in this case we need to man down, and we need to say, look, I am feeling this, and just be honest with ourselves, because I think there's often a big part of being a man that is just denying yourself this. Is just even Tuli, the examples that you made, that's a big step in terms of maturity that I see some men never do. Is this willingness to reconcile with yourself, in even just within yourself, to stop making excuses to yourself, because I think that's a thing where we tend to be caught in this trap because we've always been influenced so much by external factors. Don't cry. Be tough. That we've so much internalized this that we can't even be honest to ourselves anymore. That we're feeling vulnerable, because the second we do, there's some sort of internal wall or something that just shields it up and says, no, but you need to be a man. And you can't do this. And I think that's the most important fact, is just to be willing to accept that. And I feel like sometimes there are excuses that we make where even if we realize that we need to do this, we say, but I don't have the time right now. If only I had 4 weeks at a time so that I could properly unpack all of this. Because I'm so busy with work right now, I can't afford being weak, I can't afford a breakdown. And I think it's important to realize there's no better time than now. There's always going to be another urgent problem, and if you're not willing to engage and tackle your problems now, will you ever be?
And then it might be too late for that perpetrator.
So Tuli, I just want to commend you for going to a psychologist. I've done the same in the past, because it's just at some stage you just have to realize to yourself, I can't deal with this, I have a problem, and let me go and search help somewhere, from some external party, be that a psychologist. I think just like as my last closing thing, psychologists, I think people see them as a joke. My thing always that I say, even if you don't trust in the help that a psychologist can do, I always argue, go to a psychologist, because your friend or something might after a while get tired and want to leave. You're literally paying the psychologist to be there and listen to you. They cannot get up and say, look, I'm tired of you, and leave. So you, in that sense, you have someone that has to listen to your nonsense. Even if no matter how useless you feel it is. And I think if there's no other value for you in a psychologist, at least take that. The person will never be able to just get up and say, I'm tired of you now. They have to stay and listen to you.
Even if you come with the same thing over and over until you get to the conclusion remarks. Very short and sweet.
I have a strong belief that the best gift that you can give to your partner in relationships and to the world is actually to be the best version of you, right? And as a guy, that initially means that getting rid of your toxic beliefs, your toxic ideologies, your toxic or dysfunctional understanding of what masculinity is, and getting rid of, even going as far as getting rid of people within your environment that are toxic. Because at the end of the day, when all of these things happen, you have a tendency of developing a very, like you said, a very authentic version of yourself. And that authenticity that you bring across, that you develop about yourself, is essentially the one thing that will bring you peace in this world. It's also essentially the thing that will probably bring you a lot of money as well.
Yeah. And prepares you for the next partner, but brings peace within yourself.
Yeah. And it also is the thing that actually gives you like really great relationships.
Absolutely.
With whoever it is that you're choosing to date. So I think as men we need to like start doing that.
Yeah.
Really examine yourself, but also really work on getting rid of everything that's toxic around you and developing like a really, really awesome version of who you are.
Thank you so much for that one, Tuli. Pedro, last one.
Well, in conclusion, I would say that men, I think it's high time we realize that the road we are in is no longer working. The path we are is no longer working.
Yeah.
It's time that we redirect ourselves into a new journey of honesty, number one. We should be able to speak up.
Yeah.
Let us come out clear. No man on earth can handle everything. You at a certain point you will need help. You need assistance. Even Jesus Christ needed somebody to help him carry the cross. Then who are you to not need assistance?
Absolutely.
So at a certain point we need to realize and be honest with ourselves and that we cannot handle everything on our own. We need to speak out. And secondly, let us be more caring. Let us show affection often. Because this is a feeling that men try to hide always. I cannot be seen doing that in public. Let us do it. Hold your daughter, your son. Say, son, I love you. Tell your son, I love you. That is how we start destroying the cycle.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for that one, Pedro. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me right here. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That, of course, what we men get to talk about, proudly brought to you by Regain Trust, Men Engage Men Network Namibia, as well as the United Nations Population Fund. Thank you so much. In conclusion, let's men down. If you are going through challenges in your relationships, there's always help out there. So do not be, the perpetrator when it comes to violence. Rather be the person that says, you know what, I've sought help, and you can also seek for help right here on our Regain Trust page as well. From my side, Adriano, until next time, goodbye.
Namibia, my name is Adora and welcome to a brand new edition of the cool new show called The Eindhoven. On this show, we get to know who our artists really are behind the scenes and what inspires them, what keeps them going, what makes them tick. What are some of your favorite sounds?
Trap music, hip-hop.
Yeah, okay.
Hip-hop, Afro dancehall.
We came from a background whereby we were raised by our grannies. So it's not the shameful thing for me to do because we used to sell, and said, we would work from Bambalokasi to Okuriangala.
Wala Namibia, this is your boy Tulisan. Don't forget to watch the Ain't Like a Vibe TV show on One Africa Television.
Die winter is voorbij. Met zoveel vragen in mijn hart. Leid u mij naar die waarheid. Ik leg mijn hart op die handen. Ik zielde toe met die liefde. Ik vergeet nooit van mij. Bescherming om mij heen. Ik vergeet nooit van mij. Die hou mij in die hand. Elke letter van mijn naam is uitgewerkt door die hand. Ik vergeet nooit van mij. Ik vergeet nooit van mij. Al komt die twijfel weer. Ik vergeet nooit van mij. Hier is storms wat woedt. Hier is donker om mij. Leid mij dier die gevaar. Hier is storms wat woedt. Hier is donker om mij. Leid mij dier die gevaar. Ik vergeet nooit van mij, Heer. Je houdt mij in die hand. Elke letter van mijn naam is uitgekarfd door die hand. Ik vergeet nooit van mij, Heer. Ik vergeet nooit van mij. Al komt die twijfel weer. Ik vergeet nooit van mij. Jy staan soms so voor my, stil so sonder woorde. Ek wonder wat jy weet en wat jy van my verwag. Jy is 'n inspirasie, met die stilte in jou. Jou hand wat altyd op my skouer rus. Dit voel of jy my nooit sal laat gaan nie. En ek moet by jou wees. Ek is nie 'n heldin nie, ook nie 'n godin nie. Ek is net 'n meisie wat hier voor jou staan. Ek is nie 'n heldin nie, ook nie 'n godin nie. Ek is net 'n meisie hier by jou, wat vra vir jou liefde, wat vra vir jou liefde. Al kom daar soveel jare, steeds roer jy my hart. Elke keer as jy glimlag of na my kyk, jou liefde maak my sterker. Ek is waar ek wil wees. My wêreld is 'n warboel wat net jy verstaan. Dit voel of jy my nooit sal laat gaan nie. En ek moet by jou wees, my lief. Ek is nie 'n heldin nie, ook nie 'n godin nie. Ek is net 'n meisie wat hier voor jou staan. Ek is nie 'n heldin nie, ook nie 'n godin nie. Ek is net 'n meisie hier by jou, wat vra vir jou liefde, wat vra vir jou liefde. Jou liefde maak my sterker elke dag, sterker elke dag. Jou liefde is al wat ek vra, al wat ek vra. Ek is nie 'n heldin nie, ook nie 'n godin nie. Ek is net 'n meisie wat hier voor jou staan. Ek is nie 'n heldin nie, ook nie 'n godin nie.